Mm. Hey fellas, welcome to the sixth and final episode of Monogram's 1/72nd scale Space Shuttle with Boosters build. And as you can see behind me, there it is. It is finished. Yay! I got it. I worked late last night and finally got the base finished. Been about a month since I started this bad boy, and Ringo's gotten a lot bigger, and he's gonna get a lot bigger. He's a golden retriever, right, buddy? Yes, it is. In this episode, I cover just a few issues with the boosters, or how I tackle like the seam lines and how I'm setting up my base, and then we get on to the finished model. At the end of this video, now I built this for one of my buddies, who's also a modeler, but he didn't think he had the skills to build it, which he does. He's just a big sissy. But while I was building this, he was building a 1/44 scale, 1 and 1/44 scale Revel with shuttle with the launch pad, and he made this really cool diorama, and he sent me some pictures. So at the end of this video, I'm going to post some of the pictures of his build that he sent to me, and after I show the pictures of this one. So I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been fun. It's been a long build, and it's taken me a lot longer than what I normally do, but I had a lot of other stuff to do as well. So anyway, I'll quit rambling. Let's get on with the video. If you want to see the finished model and don't want to watch any of the building stuff beforehand, then I'll put a timestamp right there. All right. So let's take a look at how I'm going to start on the boosters. But before I get too in-depth on these, I'm going to alter them a little bit to fit on a wooden base, because I don't like the plastic stand that comes with the kit, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replicate this somewhat in wood. Now I'm going to use an oval wooden base, and I'll do some artwork on it. But the basic premise is that I'm going to use the same type of setup, but just using acrylic rods and a wooden base instead of the kit plastic parts that come with it. So here you see these two posts would stick into the boosters, and then this would hold up the orbiter or give extra support to the orbiter. So I'm just going to do the same thing with acrylic rods. And how I'm creating a cavity to fit my 3/8 inch diameter acrylic rods, each one of those will go into the one of the boosters, is I took a straw and I ended up cutting a hole and actually taking some extra plastic card and creating a hole so that it would fit down in these exhaust nozzles here. Now it only comes down to about here. So my acrylic rod's going to fit up into here, and then all the other parts are going to go on. And then finally, this piece will go on. So once I get everything painted, I can start to assemble this. Now, to add a little bit extra support to these fragile straws, I've cut out a circular shaped plastic card with a hole in the center that will fit the straw, just like so. And then my acrylic rod will come up through here. So I've got support down here and as well as towards the top. And I think that will give me enough strength to hold up the model in an upright position. So that's basically what I'm doing there. What I've done here is I've just created a little jig. I've drilled in a hole straight up and down, perpendicular to the dang it, let me get this off of here so I can show you. So I've stuck my acrylic rods in there at a 90-degree angle, so you can see that it should be lined up perfectly. So then I can insert my straws, and I glued those down with 5-minute epoxy. And I've left just a little space in there where I'm going to creep some 5-minute epoxy down in there, and then I'll probably use just a little bit of Magic Sculpt to create a curve that goes in there, so I have a nice smooth transition for the rod to fit down into. So you're not having to like find the hole; it'll automatically go into that. So that's my plan, Stan. And I'm going to get on with this. I'm going to let this cure a little bit longer before I do anything else. And we'll get on with fixing the seams on the boosters painting those, and then we should be good to go. All right, fellas, I am working on the boosters, or solid rocket boosters, or SRBs for you knowledgeable types. Now, I've already got this one put together and the seam line's taken care of, and I'm not real concerned with the seam line along this side, the inside, because you're not going to see it as easily. You may be able to peek around and see something, but I really don't think you're going to be able to see much. I am going to take care of it, but my main concern is going to be the seam line along this ridge, which is going to be on the outside, which you will see. And I took care to glue this up as carefully as possible, so I shouldn't have a whole lot of work ahead of me. Now, a lot of times what I like to do is I like to start my seam work before I glue. In other words, I like to glue it as precisely as possible to eliminate the amount of work that I have to do on the filling and sanding. Now with this, it was I've got just a little bit of seam line running right along this ridge. You know, a lot of people I think get concerned about these little things, these raised details sticking out. I'm not concerned about it. I can sand around them. And if there's just a little bit of seam line along those ridges, it's not really going to be that noticeable. Now, my philosophy, if you're familiar with law enforcement or shooting or military, then I like to aim small, miss small. And what I mean by that is I like to work really small, and I don't like to smear putty everywhere like you saw on that damn fuel tank. So what I like to use is my CA glue and metallic pigment and a glue looper, and I've got a real tiny one right here that I'm using. And there's a little bit of glue when I glued these in. I squished them together that kind of oozed out. So I'm just going to take an X-Acto blade and run along here and try to get that raised lip from the oozed glue out. And I'm just going to work a section at a time when I go to fill these. And like this. I'm just going to run this along. And I'm not real concerned with getting it perfect right now. I'm just taking that little lip of oozy plastic out. Now I've glued these probably a week ago. So the glue should be set up and the plastic should have settled down. And I shouldn't have any issues with a ghost seam line coming back. Okay? Now I've got my metallic pigment and thin CA and the Zap-A-Gap stuff, if I didn't show that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to run it right along that seam line and let it flow. And sometimes it's not going to flow because there's really not much of a seam line there. But where it is, I would just want to get this CA glue down into those little crevices. And like I said, I'm just going to work a section at a time. And I'm going to aim small, miss small, so I don't get this stuff everywhere and cause myself a lot more work. So I'm just working with the tiniest stuff that I have. This tiny glue looper and this filler concoction that I got going on here that's not going to go everywhere. Okay, now I'll just take some kicker. Okay, now I've got these micro mesh sanding sticks. I've also got some of these real thin sticks that I use, but I'm just going to take the coarse one and I'm just going to work small, not applying a lot of pressure, and I'm just going to try to sand away anything that's not in that little bitty seam line that I got. Just like so. And then I'll come back with a medium. And I may have to repeat this process It's going to be one of those deals where you kind of look, listen, and feel. More so on the look and feel than the listen. Okay, so I'll look at it, and then I'll take my fingernail and run it across there. And that feels pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and get along and take care of these seam lines, take care of these right along here. And we should be good to go with putting everything together and getting these painted up. All right, fellas, let's look at what we got going on. So I've got the boosters painted. The upper portions are, the glue is drying on the upper ones that I've glued to the fuel tank. And I've got these lower ones mounted on here just like so. Now, initially I was going to have the booster sitting flat on the base, but I thought this would look a lot better, just having about an inch up from the base. So what I've done, I'll turn this around so we can get a good look at it. Oh, such a big model. So what I've done here is I've added a stop for these posts, and that's just 2 pieces of plastic card that I glued in there at the very top of that straw that you saw earlier. I cemented it in with Tamiya Extra Thin, and then I took some 2-part epoxy and put it in there, and I also added these little circular tubes in there to help reinforce that, because this is going to be a lot of weight on here, and I wanted to make sure that it's nice. It's not going to pop off and be rattling around inside there, and then you're going to have to pop off the other one to get them to fit correctly. So I did that. I mask and paint. I spent all day yesterday masking and painting the stripes, which seems like it would be easy just to mask and paint stripes, but it took a lot of work to try to get them as even as I could. After I painted everything, then what I did was added the foam that's seen along this area and along the bottom with my Magic Sculpt, and painted that as well. Then I gloss coated everything, and then came back with a brush and put some flat clear coat over top of the foam, because those aren't supposed to be shiny. I also put a little piece of soft foam in the straw down here, so when you set this on the base, it just gives it a nice professional touch. It doesn't clank, and it's not so the post isn't making contact with the plastic card. There's a little bit of foam in there to cushion it. So there we go. I'm going to get to, as soon as the upper portions dry, I will get these put on and then attach the shuttle, and then I can start working on the artwork for the base. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, because I'm not exactly sure how much of this is going to be visible with the shuttle on there. So I'm going to get all that put together and then decide how I'm going to do that. Now, I probably will also add a post right down here to help support the actual orbiter. So there we go. All right, let's take a look at it. Now, I had to move the camera way back to get this monster in here. And this is an 18-inch ruler. So you can see that it is approximately 33, 34 inches tall with the base. So it's a big chunk of plastic. Now, I had somebody ask me if this is the biggest one that I've ever built, and initially I thought the B-1 bomber that I built in 1/48 scale was a little bit bigger, and it may have been, but as far as the amount of plastic, I think this is probably the most plastic in one kit that I've put together. So let's just spin it around so you can get a good look at it. Now it is pretty sturdy. It may not look it, but you can manhandle this one a little bit. I glued the heck out of it. There we go. It's funny when I display these, I see little specks and stuff that shouldn't be there because I've spent so much time painting it. But there it is, and I am really proud of this one, fellas. I really enjoyed it. It was a tough build, definitely not the easiest kit to put together, and you know, it took me about a month to put all this together, which is you know, more than what I expected it was going to take. But I had some spring projects outside, so I didn't work on it as probably as diligently as I work on a lot of the kits that I do. So. But I am really happy with how this turned out. I think it just looks really cool. Now, a couple things that I don't think I covered on video. How I attach the orbiter to the shuttle. The kit has you attach it with a post down here at the bottom, and then obviously the posts up here. Now I attach those with sprue goo, but I also, there's these other contact points that touch the model. I went ahead and scraped away the decal right in those areas on those second and third contact points down here at the bottom. So I use sprue goo and then 5-minute epoxy for those. And then this one up here is just sprue goo. And then I let that cure really well before I decide to fit it on the base. Now, I had to put everything together before I added my third post down here to support the orbiter, because I needed the right placement for the post. So I needed to get it all together before I started painting the base and getting that finished up. Now, one issue that I did run into with the lower part of the boosters is I think the rings that attach the fuel tank down here were a little bit off. So I ended up gluing these with 5-minute epoxy and holding it while the epoxy dried and adjusting it to make sure that it was in line with the upper part of the boosters. A bit of a pain, but it worked out in the end. And I added the foam area here around the join with Vallejo plastic putty. I just got in there and squirted it and kind of maneuvered it, and you know, it may not be 100% accurate, but I think it represents the foam pretty well. And then I came in here with a hand brush, and it was rather difficult to get in there, trying to hold the big fuel tank and the other booster, and getting there and paint everything with this big hunk of plastic in my hands. I needed like 2 extra hands, but ended up getting it done and happy with it. Now we'll go ahead and lift this bad boy off, and it just slides up just like that. And we'll take a look at the back end there. And I just think it looks really cool from that end with the big black holes for the boosters down here. We'll set this down. I almost want to just like take it and throw it in the air and see if it flies. Now the base, I spent a lot of time debating on what I was going to do, and I wanted to incorporate the elements from the patch, which was designed by 2 of the astronauts on the mission. And after I researched it, I decided, yeah, that's what I want to do. Now, this isn't the patch that they use. If you look on the STS mission patch, they have it's in the outline of the space shuttle. But I wanted to incorporate a lot of the elements from the patch because they all meant something. With the sun rising at 39 degrees, the MG, which means I think microgravity, which is one of the things that we're studying. The constellation here, all the names. In the Star of David down here to represent Raymond, who was the first Israeli astronaut to go into space. So I really like the idea. Not, like I said, not my greatest artwork ever, but I thought it turned out really cool. Now, to put the shuttle back on here, it's as simple as just sliding it on, and there we go. Now, I probably could have left off the third post. With the way I built these boosters and the way the posts fit up in there, it would have held, but I wanted just to add some extra support, because if we look at the kit base, which is this flimsy plastic here, they have the third post that goes up in here as well. So I don't know. I just think this is a lot better option than this crappy kit base. So there it is, fellas. I hope you enjoyed this build series. I enjoyed doing it. And if you're building this kit, I hope some of the things that I've done help you out. I'll flash up some pictures, and then I'll also flash up some pictures of my buddy's build. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.